What a fantastic group of friendly faces. Delighted to see you here, chit-chatting a little bit while we're allowing a lot of people in. As always with these events, there's a lot of people lining up and a lot of people beforehand and a few latecomers. So we'll just give it a few minutes. I see some old friends and new friends here. And I am Johan Roos, and I'm sort of the lead for this event. But I thought while we're waiting for all of these others to join, I know that many of you have been at the Drucker Forum in previous years, once, twice, or perhaps like me since 2012 or 11, I can't remember. But I have a question for you in the chat, and that is, what is the best thing you have experienced at the Drucker Forum or with the Drucker Forum? If you can just type in that and say, what is the best thing, whatever you've had as an experience of or at the Drucker Forum, what would that be? So why don't you type that into the chat very quickly, and we get a little bit of an overview. We see already some people. So again, I asked, what are the best things that you've ever experienced at the Drucker Forum? And this is just, of course, to warm yourself up a little bit and warm the rest of us up. Love it. Open to the world, curious, meeting people, incredible minds, top management thinkers, trends, meals and coffee breaks. Fantastic, I agree. Those are amazing, especially out in the corridor there outside the main room in the Hofburg Palace. Colleagues, first time, great. Sam, super good. Food for thought, great conversations. The gala dinner, none the least the gala dinner. I really appreciate this thing that Team Richard has put up with, you know, black tie and beautiful, gorgeous, very European, like my living room as well, you know, at home here. It's fantastic. Good style. Perspectives, ideas, perfect. Super good. So we're about, how many over now? 176. My guess was that we would end up a little bit around 200 because there's almost 600 who signed up for this. So we'll see. Wonderful people from all over the place. So anyway, so I think we should get started and more than welcome everybody to this 1 hour, I hope, intensive event in the spirit of the Next Management and Drucker Forum. So my job here is to talk to you a little bit about what we do here. And I will now try to share my screen a little bit and talk a little bit about what we're going to do. So Renate, can you help me do that? Am I okay now? Can you see this?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So anyway, this is the big one, right? So this is the 17th Drucker Forum. I'm pretty awed by that. And you can see these lovely faces of happy thinkers and doers. And the theme this year, or the topic this year, is, of course, next era leadership and all hands on deck. And for those of you who haven't yet, please consider this. There is we have November 6 and 7. There's also going to be a lot of exciting things on November 5, on the Wednesday beforehand. So we'll get back to that a bit later on. But I think this is super cool. I really like this conference. But our focus now is this event, and we call this Signals from the Future. It's perhaps a little bit presumptuous, but the whole idea is to share a little bit what some of these AI interviews, and I'll get back to you about that, what they reveal about our overarching theme, the next management, which is, of course, inspired by the whole idea of the Druckerian sort of the next sort of century, you can say, the next something for what is. It's beautiful. It's not specified when, but it's the next one. And with me, of course, I have Brian Solis, who will soon unleash, and then we have Tony O'Driscoll as well, who will share some of what we're doing on this. So there is AI in this, both as a method, but also as a topic, and also as a food for thought thing in it. But think of it, this is not about AI as such, but it's sort of AI infused management, and we'll talk about that. So the purpose of not just this session, but the whole next management work that we do in this virtual think tank that we call the Vienna Center for Management Innovation, which is affiliated, of course, with the Drucker Forum, is to create space for reflection on what it means to lead wisely in a world impacted by AI. You'll probably hear us talk about this, not just today, but in the future about this wise thing, leading wisely in a world impacted by AI. It's something I'm personally very preoccupied with, and trying to kind of make sense of as well. So I will not play this video, but I'll pay respect to Sandy Minton Beddoes, who is the chief editor of The Economist, who already in November, December was interviewed here. And she talked about a very unusual now that we have 3 simultaneous big shocks. And she even used the term that may upend the world as we know it. And of course, it's the geopolitical struggle between the big powers. And we see that played out even more over the last couple of months, and perhaps even the last couple of weeks. That's one thing that is difficult to grasp in itself. The second one she talked about is, of course, the trade wars. We can even call it trade wars. The uncertainty on the trade with tariffs back and forth and up and down. All of this is difficult in itself. And of course, all of this is super difficult for us who were brought up and to thrive in a world where globalization was everything, the A to Z was globalization. And the third thing she talks about that adds to this really 3 shocks is of course technology, but in particular artificial intelligence that seem to be really, really dramatically impacting us. And I remember in January 2023, 2 months after ChatGPT was launched, I initiated and drove a global task force in Holt International Business School with a couple of what we call wow experiences that really not just show that AI can create or put knowledge together and know stuff, quote unquote, but also the importance of human judgment in all of this. And where you have to ask a lot of questions about just judgment and wisdom here, but that we can get to that. But this is sort of the lead into a short, but I think super powerful talk by Brian Solis, who is not just a best-selling author, he's a 9 times best-selling author. And he's head of global innovation at ServiceNow. He's at the American West Coast, and he calls himself sort of a digital futurist, and he's been at this for quite a long time. And I think you say also anthropology into this, which is about how do people and humans sort of develop and work, and how do we understand humans in all of this. So that's really the lead in to Brian here. So I will unplug and let Brian in and share from his hotel room very early from the American West Coast. So we're grateful to have you here, Brian. So with that, I'll shut up and let you go.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. And I do look forward to seeing you in Vienna in November. I'm coming to you from Silicon Valley, where we are about 30 miles south of what's called Cerebral Valley, which is the heart of the AI revolution here in San Francisco. I spend basically all of my time with companies of all sizes all around the world. And I also spend a significant amount of time with entrepreneurs and founders to understand their mindsets in this AI revolution, because I can assure you that they have a completely different mindset and approach to how they're thinking about business design versus some of the more legacy enterprise organizations that I have an opportunity to work with. So I have 10 minutes to share with you some of my insights, and I would love to just jump in here by saying that in the conversations that I have with executives, and we think about the theme for the Drucker Forum around next management, it's almost as if decisions being made about the future of AI aren't about next management. They're about yesterday's management. So we see artificial intelligence being explored as uh, a mechanism to scale yesterday versus to reimagine tomorrow. So as a result, we see uh, workforce reductions. There's a famous conversation between Steve Bartlett, who is the host of CEO Diary of a CEO, with the godfather of AI, Jeffrey Hinton, and he tells a story of how one company has, over the years with AI, reduced its workforce from 7,000 with the goal of getting to 3,000. And essentially, what that assumption being made is that that business model is one worth reducing in order to thrive, versus what are the opportunities needing to thrive in a future where AI also unlocks new opportunities that we couldn't do before. And speaking of The Economist, when we see headlines like this that tout, what happened to the artificial intelligence revolution, and you see supporting headlines that say, "Are we in a hype cycle? Is there too much hype around artificial intelligence?" My answer is no. In fact, I would say the opposite. I would think that there's not enough hype around the potential of artificial intelligence, and that is a conversation worth having. At ServiceNow, I helped to lead uh, what we call our AI index research. For two years, I've studied how companies were and were not uh, maturing with artificial intelligence and where those investments were taking place. So, for example, governance, leadership and vision, data governance, uh, all of the foundational pillars that were necessary for companies to grow and scale artificial intelligence. And what we had found this year, we just published it last month, was that AI maturity, out of a score of 100, with 100 being the most mature, we found that companies regressed in 2025 over 2024. So the average score dropped from 44 out of 100 to 35. And the reason for that is that, just think in the last 2 years alone, as we remember, generative AI hit the market in November of 2022, and here we are, and just 3 years later, we're already talking about AI agents. We're talking about agentic AI. We're it is so much, so fast, and so deep that decision makers are taking a step back. They're feeling overwhelmed, and they're now trying to reimagine what are the things that they need to be doing in order to move forward in the most productive and effective manner. But still, if you talk to uh, any decision maker, and you also talk to the employees that report to them, what you see is the most interesting set of gaps that are not uncommon throughout any revolution. So what you see here is, in the dark purple color, the feedback from employees, and the light purple color is feedback from C-suite executives. And there is a gap in understanding what our vision is, what our possibilities are with AI versus what employees see as what's happening with their organization. So CEOs feel like their company's approach to AI is well controlled and highly strategic. They think their company has been successful in adopting AI. Uh, Executives believe they have an AI strategy, and executives believe that their companies have high levels of AI literacy. But if you ask their employees, it's the opposite. there is no strategic AI approach, no AI strategy, no real level of AI fluency or literacy, and AI adoption hasn't been as big as executives believe. And what is happening is across the board is that there's a lack of vision, there's a lack of opportunity around imagining what's different. So if you think about how we've approached every technology revolution, including AI, we have used it to do what we did yesterday better, faster, cheaper, more efficiently at scale. And that is the approach that we'll continue to take. But AI is the first technology that I've ever studied, and I go back to technology revolutions in the 1990s. It's the first technology revolution I've studied that unlocks opportunities at scale that we couldn't do yesterday. So the question is, what could we do that we didn't do yesterday? What could we do that we didn't know we could do yesterday? And that is the area where traditional businesses do not thrive. They do not change well. They do not innovate well. And here in Silicon Valley, it's quite the opposite. These are entrepreneurs and founders and dreamers who are asking these questions. And when they explore the unknown, they actually make the unknown much more tangible and systematic. And what happens is as a result, they unlock opportunities that create competitiveness that is going to force legacy organizations or traditional organizations to have to respond. So the biggest risk isn't about what you embrace and how you embrace artificial intelligence. The biggest risk is not making decisions fast enough, not thinking differently, and not dreaming big enough. This is, I've spent the last 4 years understanding how to shift perspectives amongst leaders, not just around artificial intelligence, but as you heard, with economic challenges, with socioeconomic challenges that we face, polarization in society, coming off of a global pandemic. We've had so many massive disruptions that we need a new way of thinking. And I published that recently in a book called Mind Shift, which is how do we start with ourselves to ask different questions, to explore new possibilities, because this is the biggest opportunity for us, is to think differently. And the way that I'd like to approach this, as I think about next management, is yes, let's do what we did yesterday, but let's prioritize what works very well in order for us to achieve our goals. And in order to achieve our goals, that means that we have to have a vision, not just let's have AI literacy, let's reskill people towards the jobs of tomorrow. Let's have some real conversations about where do we want to see our organization in 18 months, 24 months. 36 months, 48 months, understanding that there are going to be new waves of artificial intelligence along the way. So, what is our vision for working with or competing with artificial intelligence? Once we have a vision, then we can prioritize how we make those investments. And those investments have to be broken out into two buckets. One is optimized AI, those are purpose built investments that solve real business challenges and improve everyday workflow. It is understanding that against our vision that we are investing and implementing AI in the workflows that help us achieve that vision, not just automating yesterday's workflows that we digitized through yesterday's digital transformation. It is understanding that we're trying to enable a faster, more efficient, productive, value-added organization that helps us achieve our vision. More so, that vision has to be bigger than we're comfortable with, which means then, what can we do that we couldn't do before artificial intelligence? This is powerful, and it's a collaborative strategy along with optimized AI that looks at how do we create new products with AI? How do we create new services? How do we create new business models? And then, as a result, how do we invent new workflows that allow us to then reimagine the knowledge in knowledge worker with artificial intelligence? Because it is going to be innovative AI that disrupts business models and entire industries. And I think that's a good thing. When you are investing in both of these fronts, when you are working against a vision that you are uncomfortable with because it is bigger than you imagined, then you are unleashing productive disruption. And as a result, it is optimized AI that is going to continue your competitiveness. It's going to continue your profitability and your margins. It's going to help you compete for relevance. But what it does is it also creates a new standard for AI powered status quos. And I know that sounds strange, but if everybody's optimizing their businesses with AI and they stop there, that is the new status quo. But it is innovative AI that is going to create game changing use cases, reimagine work. And as a result, those are going to create net new outcomes. That is the very definition of innovation is net new value, what you didn't do yesterday. And as a result, the delta between the two is disruption. And disruption, I believe, is a gift that you give yourself. And no transformation can happen. No AI success can happen without that vision. And as a result, that vision then needs leadership. Next management has to not only have that vision, but we also need the operational support, the human centered approach, the employee experiences, the relationships, the leadership necessary to transform the culture to become an AI forward company. We don't yet have the jobs of the future design because we haven't yet envisioned what our future needs. We haven't audited our workforce against that vision, and we haven't studied yet enough about AI agents and agentic enterprises in order to reverse engineer how to bring our organization and our people towards that vision. And that's where this starts. So
Right.
I'll turn it back to you here, but I just wanted to leave you with this. For innovation to succeed, for true AI business transformation to unlock, we have to be willing to disrupt ourselves, to explore the unknown, to be uncomfortable with where we're moving in terms of knowledge, and then also be uncomfortable with unlearning the things that are going to tie us to yesterday and prevent us from moving beyond optimization. So I look forward to seeing you and continuing this conversation in November at the Drucker Forum, where we can reimagine the future of business together. Thank you.
So thank you, Brian, for your wise words here. I'll ask you a question so we don't leave you just as is. And I've like you, I've often worked with a lot of leadership teams, and one of the things that I've found is that there's an assumption underlying the whole idea of vision and vision making. And that is the mountain, in a sense. The person on the top of the mountain sees longer and more than others. And that's supposed to be the boss, right? And the question I have to you, Brian, when you meet these leaders who you say you need to have a vision, what's your vision of AI rather than just efficiency improvements? How could they know? Isn't this pretty unknown to a lot of leaders? I'm sure out of the 270 people here, and many are leaders, you know, of course, a lot and see longer than anybody else, but others may not. In fact, it may be more junior people in the hierarchy who see longer with respect to AI. I'm just tossing this out, Brian. How can we expect the top brass to have this vision if they have not a clue? I'm being a bit provocative, but what's your view?
It's a great question. It's actually one of the reasons why I wrote Mindshift was to assume that tomorrow's leader isn't at the top. It's the people who now need to convince others, and some of the art that that I believe is the opportunity here is to translate those signals into meaningful stories that convince those who are decision makers, wherever they are in the pyramid or the mountain, to understand that this is their opportunity to lead forward towards outcomes that become much more tangible. This is a whole other conversation because now we're talking about the psychology of opening and changing minds. But I do want to say this for the people at the top, whether they're at the very top or within the stratosphere of the top. Here in Silicon Valley, we have what I call the Disneyland tour of innovation, where CEOs from all over the world they'll come to meet with
Mm.
Google, they'll meet with ServiceNow, they'll meet with Meta, they'll meet with all of these leaders around here to drink some of the Silicon Valley water, if you will, because they want to see what they don't know. And they challenge themselves into understanding then by asking the questions, what are these companies doing and seeing differently than what I know? And so those leaders who lean in, they do leave inspired, they do leave motivated. But what we're talking about is surrounding yourself with people who are going to challenge your thinking. Otherwise, you're locked in the status quo. I'll give you one last answer because I know we're on a schedule. There's a fascinating study called the CEO Confessional, and some of the CEOs who are spending time with entrepreneurs who are creating what's called out here AI native businesses, they are learning so much about the possibilities of artificial intelligence that they have said that they feel more comfortable partnering and collaborating with artificial intelligence than they do with their own boards of directors and also their C-suites, which is fascinating.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. Please stay on if you can. I know you're rushing away to some important meetings, but please stay on. So, let me ask you all here, and we can just pick up on this in general, but we thought we'll have some fun questions for you. Zoom poll here, please. We're going to ask you three simple yes/no questions, and Renata will take care of this. Give it a think. Can AI help with reducing bureaucracy, eliminating corporate politics, and increasing your creativity? What do you think? Oh, lovely. We're 270 people now. That's fantastic. Beating the record here for it. Wonderful. We're over 200 now on each. Give it just a little bit more time. Okay. What do you think, Renata? Should we call it? Should we end it? Can we? Nobody can see it right now, correct? That's. Oh. I think we should end it. Stop sharing. Share results. Do we have the results for this?
Yes. Can you see them?
I can see them, but can others see them?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Perfect. All right. So we have strong yes, 82% on reducing bureaucracy. Can't wait to see that one. If Michele is in the group, he would be glad to hear that. Can AI help with eliminating corporate politics? No, 60-40 for no. Interesting. And then can we increase our creativity? Absolutely. Almost, 87-13. I think these are very cool polls. But so at least we can see that there will be some changes here as well, in addition to what Brian talked about, so that the leadership perspective on this, how important it is to lean in on this and work with people who are leaning in on this. So, fantastic, fantastic. All right, so I will click this away and sort of take you a little bit into the event that we promised here, and that is to talk a little bit about the interviews that we made. So I'll just give you a little bit of an update on this. So in February, we developed a voice assistant and tested that out. Actually, I started already in January, and we tested it out gradually on more and more people, including our board, fantastic groups of thinkers and doers that we have, executives and real scholars. And then eventually we started to collect data on this. And it turns out, just so you know what's happening here, this is how it works. It's really an interesting experience. We had people who have talked for about 10 to 30 minutes with this AI voice interview agent, and it's structured along 7 themes. These 7 themes or guiding principles that we have already introduced for the next management. You heard Richard talk about this at the forum, at the last 2 forums. And the interview is very simple. You basically go to a website here, and there's even a QR code for those of you who haven't done this yet. You're more than welcome to do this. This is highly restricted and correct in terms of privacy and everything. You can do this anonymously, and the data is protected and so forth. These are themes. So it's like a semi-structured interview. Well, it's actually a structured interview, but you're allowed to kind of talk about these things, or just triggers. There's questions, there's follow-up questions based on who you are or what role you have. So I know there's quite a few here in the group that have already done it, but we would love to see more people do this because this provides wonderful data. Let me say that as I'm responsible for this, and I'm the only one looking at this, but again, it's anonymous unless you choose to say who you are. We urge you to use an alias. But about half of the attempts to do this does not succeed. And I think it has to do with that the person who's trying is not allowing access to the microphone. So this is what will happen. You'll be taken to a website. There's read the instructions. There's examples or the themes are there. There's on the right-hand side, it says press here to start the interview. That will take you to this AI voice assistant. And then it will say, talk to Vapi, and it will you push the button, and you then allow Microsoft microphone access. It works on all the browsers. I think it works best on a mobile. In a calm space, if there's a lot of noise, the voice agent will pick that up and it will be disturbed. You can say stop. You can say, I don't understand. Can you explain? You can say, please give an example. I've looked through a lot of these transcripts, and here is fine. In another context, I've looked through the transcripts, and I've seen people being horribly rude to this voice agent, not in this context, but in another one. And this voice agent respond very politely. So you can please be nice, but you will only be met by a nice response if you provoke. So anyway, so I just wanted to share with you about 55 interviews so far that I think are useful, but there's about as many not so useful, which has been like 1 minute or 2 minutes, or there's some interruption or whatever. And these are people from the Drucker Forum ecosystem. People are signing up for this year's Drucker Forum, get an opportunity to do this. It's about 15 minutes if you want to. You can talk a little bit shorter, you can talk a little bit longer, but it's the voice agent will summarize things and check whether this is what you wanted to say and so forth. So this works pretty well when it works. So the question then becomes, what have we gotten out of this? And I've done an interview now. I say it this way, I have about 300 pages of transcripts that I've sort of looked into now, and this is adding up every week, so I'm looking into it. And there's a whole range of interesting patterns in it. Of course, there's pattern along those 7 principles or themes, but I don't think that's so interesting to present here, but rather, what are some of the overarching stuff? What cuts across this? And what are some of the patterns that we see? And out of about 10 that I could extract in the first couple of rounds, I've selected just 3 for you to get a feel for what we can do with it. So the overall message is this. It's very clear that the people who've been interviewed, and these are seniors, juniors, from all, scholars, practitioners, consultants. Basically, there is sort of a view. Management is being transformed right now, driven by clearly the integration of AI and a shift of organizational values and practices. And Brian, who just spoke, who's sort of very anthropologically interested, he will know exactly what we mean there. There's things happening sort of under the surface here on the values levels and different practices. So that's sort of it seems undoubtedly that things are very much in transition right now. And it's not just about adapting AI, but really fundamentally rethinking how we lead and manage organization. So you could say maybe it's confirmation bias on a large scale here, but it's overall, this is what the next management set out to sort of explore and work with. So at least when I look at it as a scholar, knowing the biases, and so at least I feel that there are some confirmations here. There's plenty of, you can say, grounds for those claims that are being made in these interviews as well. And I use all kinds of perspectives, including what's called argument mapping, to look through all of this. So that's it. I thought I'd just share 3 with you. And the first one is, yes, there is something on human-centered management. Very, very clearly, prioritizing the well-being, purpose, and values of employees. You could see that very clearly. This may be, with all respect, wishful thinking, but it's very clear that the interviewees are talking about this a lot and giving examples of it as well. And I extracted sort of one point on AI and all of this. And there's quite a few talk about how AI now provides tools for personalized insights that I can use this as an employee or a team member, to really develop and get help for my needs at work. And sort of there's even the terms about sentiments in there, like that I can get help on it. It's almost therapeutical use of AI. We can see that as well in some of these examples. And so that's one thing. Something about human centricity, which is of course aligned with, again, the whole Drucker idea about putting the human in the center. Again, I know there may be a confirmation bias in all of this, but this is very clear in the interviews. A second topic that comes very, very much into this is this idea of that more of a distributed leadership, to be sort of trying to get away from this one person at the top of the pyramid being the leader. With all respect to decision making, and somebody has to be ultimately responsible, and I've been leader myself, but there is this talk about decision making, these examples of distributed leadership and decision making, much more adapted to the circumstances as well. There's the term leadership at all levels comes in, much about situational decision making. As much as I do, that much of the literature and the so-called best practices are, of course, pretty much context-free, that we are pushing upon leadership ideas about that you can lead this way, regardless of what situation you're in. And there's a lot of talk about the need for more context dependency, sensitive to situation type of leadership as well. And the AI aspect of this so far is about facilitating communication and collaboration, which could be very helpful, of course, and seemingly a lot of experiments on this. Experiment is another topic that comes up. So human centricity and this more distributed leadership. And then, sorry, that was the wrong way. And then a third one that is really interesting is the whole idea about young professionals as change agents. Perhaps it's not surprising, but you should also be aware that we're doing with the Think Young organization, and Guillaume Alvarez, who's on board here, and I are helping them a little bit with a really cool project about exploring why young professionals are not super interested in becoming middle managers, right? But I'll park that there. That will come a little later on, that research findings for you. But here it's actually quite interesting to see that reflecting the question I asked Brian, the familiarity with technology is stronger among the younger professional, of course. Not surprising. It's sort of the the tech generation. You know, some of us is trying to kind of run and try to keep up. We're still slower than a lot of the young professionals who are super good at using AI. But also the combination of that with this idea of flexible work hour, flexible work, and sort of meaningful work that is still there, it seems, despite the call back to come back to office Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. There's still something in here, again, wanting to do this, and the young professionals as the change agents for this. And you can say a few of the AI comments is really about providing the tools that I can use to innovate, me, myself, and my team as well, and to collaborate even more effectively as well. And we know how it works, you know, email, you've gone through the techie stuff, of course, with email and everything. You know, this is the chat generation. So these are three themes. Other themes are a lot about experimentation, a lot about continuous learning. There's a whole range. I just picked three on different levels in a sense for this. So if I were to say at this stage, the overall pattern is this, you know, the future management clearly moves to more human centricity, very adaptive, must be more innovative in what we do, and AI driving this, it's not driving empathy, but it's helping me understand the importance of empathy. And then innovation, of course, to success in this super poly-crisis, three shock type of world. That's it. But this is very abstract, you know, just words under it. So I asked, I arranged for a young person to say a few words about this. So I'll stop sharing here and invite a young person to say for about 30 seconds, what is the summary of this if you were to explain this to a colleague, a younger colleague, let's say in the 20s or even early 20s. Go ahead. We need to hear it as well. I don't hear it. Do you hear it? No. All right. Anyway, so when I asked sort of a young person to explain this, I really wanted it to be in the language of what other people can understand or young people can understand. So should we give it a shot again?
Imagine you're playing a video game where you're the leader of a team. In this game, you have some cool new tools, like AI, that help you and your team do better and have more fun. Being a great leader in this game means caring about your team, letting everyone have a turn at leading, listening to new ideas, trying new things, and always learning and experimenting. With the help of your cool new tools, AI, you and your team can have a lot of fun and always keep getting better at the game.
So this is how I got it explained. This is much more cooler than this other boring text I put on here. I like this idea of this is how you can do it. So that was my explanation through an avatar to a younger generation. So thank you. This is one of my colleagues, younger colleagues. She's super good and very polite on doing this. So now I would like to invite Tony O'Driscoll to join us. And Tony is like a lot of the people who are providing insights into management thinking, he's also a manager, a formal manager. He's sort of 1 foot in practice and 1 foot in theory. And he's now at Duke University, but I know you have a long, successful career in business behind you. And I've had the privilege to know Tony for many years. And we have recently accelerated because Tony is now a senior fellow at the Drucker Forum. And as such, we are collaborating in the space of the next management. And we have some really cool things coming up. But with that, Tony, I invite you to say a few words about the next part of the next management.
Great. Thanks, Johan. Can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure we're okay on audio.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right. So my challenge in the next 6 minutes is to kind of talk a little bit about what's next with the next management. And I want to just preface this, both drawing on Brian and Johan's comments, that, you know, really, we're moving forward in this with Peter Drucker's conviction that management is not really a business function. It's a social technology, and arguably an incredibly important social technology as AI starts to tighten its grip, as Brian was talking about. So let's see where we're going. I've kind of divided my comments here into three time frames. Then, looking back at Peter Drucker and how he developed the initial discipline, brought discipline to management. Now where we stand today, and next, even though it only looks about 4 years away, if you listen to Brian and you listen to social media in general, there'll be quite a lot of change over the next 4 years, and the next management initiative spans 5 years. We have 4 years left, so kind of the whole arc of the research is looking a lot along that time. And our goal today is to begin the conversation to engage all of you. There's 263 odd people here in co-creating this examination of where the next management is going to evolve towards. Now, let's begin in the 1940s. This is when Drucker first became interested in the workings of large institutions. He wasn't just looking at corporations. He looked at corporations, nonprofit, and government agencies. And he found something interesting. He noticed that although organizations were applying a lot of techniques, approaches, tools, heuristics, etc., there wasn't a unified set of management principles or practices, no common framework, no integrated approach, and no clear way to kind of align purpose, people, process. So what he did was he pulled these disparate strands together along with his own observations to weave what we now consider disciplined management, a set of principles and practices that, if applied, can improve the performance of any institution, government, nonprofit, or business. But crucially, and I think this is really important because I think it's so important for us to continue to ground our inquiry moving forward into the fact that Peter Drucker always looked at management as an organ, as kind of the primary organ of institutions, and that it was a social function, not just about business performance. Now, over the subsequent years, that's 80 years ago, there's been a couple of claims. Peter Drucker himself suggested that management may well be one of the most important innovations of the 20th century. And then Richard came along afterwards and said management prowess has more than anything delivered increasing prosperity and relieved suffering. And Gary Hamel, in typical form, kind of, boldly claims that modern management is one of humanity's most important interventions. So in short, management has really played a critical role in shaping our world, not just our workplaces. And it's in that spirit that we want to continue this line of inquiry. The challenge we're facing is that the next management, the practices that got us here may not get us there, to quote Marshall Goldsmith. The world's really changed, and the question is, does the management logic that we have inherited to date still apply? So that brings us to now. Today, the context in which management operates has changed dramatically from the 80 years ago when Peter Drucker first kind of weaved together the discipline of management. And so if the world has changed quite dramatically and is going to change even more exponentially over the next 4 years, the question is, has management kept up? And we believe that there's an opportunity there to re-examine what still sticks, and then to understand the disparate threads of what's going on out there in the community. There's 260 some people representing the community here from various perspectives, and we really want to tap into that perspective. Why now? If you look at the paper that Richard and Julia wrote, we're living in a time of polarized, politicized polycrisis. Institutions are no longer delivering. And if you look at some of the research from the Edelman Trust Barometer, institutions are suffering from a lack of societal trust. Arguably now, business is viewed as being the most trustworthy, but the media, politics, NGOs are all kind of decreasing in trust. So said differently, what used to work in management doesn't seem to be working anymore. And interestingly, Drucker warned us about this. He once said that the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, but acting with yesterday's logic. And that's something that we want to test for. The question is not just how do we manage better, right? Back to what Brian was talking about. It's not about that optimization component. And here we're talking about, if management was one of the best innovations over the last 80 years, perhaps it's time to reimagine what management must become to deal with the reality that we're facing into. So how must the practice of management itself adapt to serve institutions to deliver performance and bring back that trust factor? And so that's why now is the time to evolve a new version of this social technology. And again, we want to emphasize social technology, one that's fit for our time, that can deliver as expected, and that can kind of renew trust in institutions. That's kind of our aspiration. So where have we been so far? Well, as Johan just mentioned, there's been kind of seven what we're calling dynamic balances that we've been looking at over the last year. And these are not, we don't want to fall into the trap of saying these are problems to solve or they're trade-offs to make, but they're kind of domains of inquiry that managers need to navigate. And here I'm using the word manager broadly, and leadership at every level, middle out leadership, those kind of concepts. Everybody leads in a particular context. So these domains recognize that management's not a static discipline, right? But one that must constantly adapt to the context that we're operating in. So balance is not something that's achieved like one time at a static point in time. It's something that was continuously calibrated within a given domain, and then simultaneously seeking equilibrium across all the domains. So the dynamic balances graphic on the left there is kind of, this is a three-dimensional Rubik's Cube, or a multivariate kind of set of balances where we need to find the right equilibrium that are context specific to the environment within which managers are very well tuned. So that's our foundational. Sometimes we call these affectionately the swim lanes. So where are we going next? As Johan has said, we have to, if I'm going to put it very bluntly, because I'm looking at time, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater per se. So there's lots of wisdom that can carry forward, but some won't. And secondly, there's lots going on. There's lots of management innovation going on today, just as there was 80 years ago when Peter Drucker first pulled these threads together. That also needs to be considered. So what we're going to do here is, within each dynamic balance, we're going to look at three things. First, what contextual shifts do we anticipate or foresee in each of these domains over the next 4 years? Second, given these shifts, which of Drucker's original insights still hold? And third, and probably most importantly, what new practices are emerging from the field? What's working at work today? And how might we then kind of catalog and categorize and identify the patterns across those? So contextual shifts, enduring insights, and emerging practices is where we're going to focus within each of these dynamic balances. Let me give you a quick example of what one of these looks like. The human augmentation and automation balance, right? So obviously this is something that Brian talked about. It's also something that Johan talked about. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to frame the current context. So in an interview, you will be given a framing of the current context that's been vetted by a number of scholars and members of the community. Secondly, then we're going to, that's now, then next we're going to envision the contextual shifts. How are things going to shift over the next 4 years from multiple perspectives? Those 4 perspectives will be consistent across the 7 domains, so we can kind of probe the data set. And then thirdly, substantiating enduring insights. What of the wisdom that was identified over the last 80 years do we believe will persist and remain relevant over the next 4 years at least? Okay. So one enduring insight from Peter Drucker is that the best way to predict the future is to create it. So I'd like you to consider this your formal invitation to join the journey of inquiry in shaping the next management. We're not here to offer top-down prescriptions from the ivory tower. We're inviting collaborative co-creation and reflection, because the future of management must be built with those who are living it. That's academics, it's researchers, it's consultants, it's coaches, it's executives, and as Brian pointed out, it's also employees, because there's a variance in opinion in what's going on there. So we invite you to lend your expertise, your insight, your experience to the next management, young, old. We want to hear from everybody. We have the technology to do it. And to do so, we're hoping that Julia's inbox will be filling up from the group here, so that we can start to tap into the wisdom of the crowd. None of us is as smart as all of us. So with that, I look forward to working with you to build the next management that serves not only performance, but purpose, people, and societal progress, as Peter Drucker would have wished. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tony. That's almost poetic. I love it. It's super good. It's fantastic. And it's so exciting to work on this. And I would like to offer my sincere thanks to all of you who have already participated in the interviews, the AI-based interviews, and you saw the QR code, and Astrid has put the link here, and you'll find it on the Drucker Forum page as well. Thank you for your contribution to this. We would love to have more doing that. So that's for what I presented. What Tony has now talked about is the next step here. And we have so many cool ideas, I must say. It's very exciting because we have something to share with you in November that gets me goosebumps on doing this thing with Tony, because there can be so much more we can do with the technology and with your wisdom as well. And remember now, in this amazing Drucker Forum community, we have some of the most renowned thinkers in the world on this topic. And we have a lot of executives that Richard is doing his utmost to bring further into the ecosystem. So we are super privileged in terms of getting voices involved and people and a lot of smart people involved. And we believe there will be lots of exciting things coming out of this. So preemptive thank you for those of you who are also step forward to be part of both these AI interviews, but also want to be part of the next step that Tony talked about as well. And I think a blanket apology to Julia if we've used your emails for filling it up with interest. So bring him on, please come on. So with this, I just want to end by saying two things, or showing two things, frankly. It is the video, and Renate, perhaps you can bring this forth. It is sort of a reminder of the excitement of the Drucker Forum in November. And again, I always talk to people before I was a little bit more aligned with, engaged with the Drucker Forum. I always been sort of a moderator, speaker, and design group and all that. But I always said it's one of the most exciting conferences. And we have sort of a 3-minute reminder of that. So can we bring that on, Renate, to show people, in a sense, what it was last year, so that you will come and do even more this year as well. So.
I think the Peter Drucker Forum is the premier management conference in the world. I have come many times over the last few years, and I'm so excited to be back after the pandemic. There are not a lot of management conferences, and this one I think really stands head and shoulders above the rest. The people here, the community, the ideas that are being discussed are really important, and it's just a lovely group of people to get together with and get to meet and to talk to about the future of management. It's also the charm of Vienna. Vienna is a beautiful and wonderful city, and it's just so special to be here. And something about being here seems to really unlock people's creativity and imagination and inspiration. And I think that we all leave feeling a little bit more inspired to go back to our jobs and try to manage more thoughtfully.
I think what we must be is aware that we can tip the balance one way or another.
But what they've forgotten about is, in some sense, the real root of the problem and the third component, and that is your social health.
There is a clear need for a new holistic management framework to guide organizations in their transformation.
You have conversations, sessions, debates, presentations, and really what you have is ideas. Invisible ideas that float around and cram in and pass from person to person. And it's a very interesting, unusual mix. And those of us that come are devotees.
A fixed highlight of every Drucker Forum is a special gala dinner. The Peter Drucker Challenge is also traditionally part of the Drucker Forum. This is an essay competition that has been taking place since 2010 and is aimed at students, young managers, and young entrepreneurs.
I think the intent of the Drucker Forum is to step back and see a much bigger picture of what is the role of business and of management in society, and how do we think about that with respect to the future of humanity. So it's a much bigger lens, a bigger perspective, and that forces us to confront the things that businesses do and that management does that are not in support of creating a healthy and sustainable future. And so the conversations, I think, are meant to be deliberately provocative and thoughtful.
Don't miss out on that gala dinner. It's fantastic. You know, it's good stuff. Super good. We have used all our time, and I would just like to end with referring you to the chat where Astrid, the Chief Marketing Officer, is doing her job. She's offering you even some discount here to join the forum as well, because you've been so kind and offered us some of your time today. So with that, thank you very much for this intensive hour. I hope you got something out of it. I got a lot out of it, as always. And I really can't wait to get on with doing more on the next management and bring it on. Come on, join us here at the Vienna Center and the Drucker Forum. Thank you for your time. And have a lovely continuation of your day.